Hello, everybody. I'm Sophia Parola with the Garden State Film Festival, and here with me is filmmaker Adam Worth. He has made the documentary Monmouth County 9/11 and its aftermath. Adam, thank you so much for taking some time out to talk to us about your documentary.
Hi, thank you for having me. It's nice to be here.
Oh, it's very nice that I get to be the one to pick your brain about what went into the making of this documentary because I know that based off of what it's about and obviously watching the documentary, it was really special. So I'm excited to talk to you about it. Before
Yeah,
we
me
get
too.
started, before we get started, can you introduce yourself and then tell everybody who's watching a little bit about the doc?
Yeah, so I'm Adam Worth. I'm a director, cinematographer, editor from Asbury Park. And basically, this documentary was the idea of the Monmouth County clerk, Christine Hanlon, and also the Monmouth University History and Anthropology Department, Melissa Ziobro and Linda Brick over there, and also the Monmouth County Historical Association. Linda Brick over there. So they wanted to sort of tell the story of Monmouth County's role and the aftermath of 9/11 because as locals, we sort of know the stories, the anecdotes of the ferry captains who sort of became refugee like ships bringing people and commuters back from the city when all the bridges and tunnels were closed, and all the other people who became heroes and the victims who became victims on 9/11 who were from Monmouth County. A lot of those were commuters. So basically, we wanted to tell all those stories, and the film is part of the Monmouth County county clerk archives now to sort of be in the historical record for the county and to sort of hopefully tell future generations about what happened on 9/11 insofar as it relates to Monmouth County. So that's kind of what the film is about. It explores those stories and the first responders and the people making the decision makers who were involved in the events as they unfolded that day.
Wow. And I mean, yes, I was going to say that like the Monmouth County Clerk's Office, Monmouth University's Historical Association, all these people were involved in the making of this documentary. When did they first decide, okay, let's tell this story? And how did you get onto the project?
I had been working with the Monmouth County Historical Association on a Bruce Springsteen documentary that we did a short version of, and we're now in post-production on a longer version of that. And so our relationship sort of started there. And Linda Bricker over at the Monmouth County Historical Association sort of brought me into the fold and introduced me to Melissa at the Monmouth University History and Anthropology Department, and Christine Hanlon at the Monmouth County Clerk. And so that's kind of sort of how I became involved. They approached me actually only in July of last year, and we had to have the film ready for an exhibit, a 9/11 exhibit on 9/11. So we actually
Wow.
started and finished in a few months, less than a few months with planning, pre-production and stuff.
Oh my
Uh,
goodness.
so
That seems like a really
so
short time span to make this documentary and gather all these stories and the people telling these stories.
it was a lot of late nights. They had the idea a little late, but I'm certainly glad they had it. So I'm
Yeah.
not that. Um, but yeah, it was definitely a lot of late nights, like I said, getting the editing done. But we're really proud of how it came out. So
Me too, and I'm happy that you're telling the story because it's so impactful. Every single year, I mean, obviously it is a very tragic event, and I don't think it's ever going to be forgotten. But there's a lot of people who didn't experience it and who weren't there, who only hear about it. So it truly is insane, like watching this documentary and hearing that people in Monmouth County, where I'm from, experienced it firsthand. How did you find these people to tell these stories? Like, what went into gathering all of the people in this documentary?
I had a bit of help with sort of figuring out who the key players were. So the Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office makes a lot of the decisions regarding, police presence and security response and EMS response, to a national emergency like that. So we interviewed the former Monmouth County prosecutor, and they provided us with some footage that they had brought a video camera down to the Highlands ferry terminal where people were coming back from the city later in the day on 9/11. So they just sort of stuck this camera on a tripod and just recorded everyone coming off of the boat. And I remember, when it happened, I was a student, and I remember hearing the stories of people getting hosed off by firemen, the dust, and because we didn't know if it was a biological attack. So there's footage of the people being hosed off, and footage of people being reunited with their family as they come off the boat, and other, even footage of people, looking for people who they hope to come off the boat. So the access to that footage from the Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office really sort of opened up a new way to tell the story, because I think a lot of people had just sort of heard those stories. And so we interviewed, the ferry captains involved, and who were shuttling people back and forth, and some of the commuters who were just, worked, at the World Trade Center, and were there that day and made it home. And some of the first responders, and a lot of the people who were sort of making the decisions on how we were going to respond, and all of the dynamics and difficulties that came with that. There's also the story that I remember hearing, again, as a local, of the cars left in the commuter lot, for the days after 9/11, left there by the commuters who weren't going to be coming home. And that was, an extremely powerful thing that we talked about during the interviews for the film, and something that I'm glad we got on film, because I know the story because I was alive on 9/11, and I don't know that kids 2 or 3 generations from now will know that Monmouth County really had anything to do with it. So again, because we did it for the Monmouth County Clerk's Office, and so we're lucky that it's kind of preserved as part of history, we hope.
Did you guys know beforehand, like, where you wanted this documentary, what you wanted to get out of it, the stories, the questions that you were going to ask, or did you kind of just interview these people and see what came out?
So I guess it's definitely a mix of both. Like, I want to go into it with, I would like to go into it knowing front to back exactly what I'm doing and everything that's going to be into it. But there's definitely have to leave a little bit of room for surprises and stuff. And sometimes it's the question that you don't expect, where someone answers the most passionately, or just the most in the most surprising way. And so that can lead, you and even the film on a new direction, just from, the interview itself, for sure. But we had, I guess, like, at the simplest, it was kind of bullet points. We wanted to make sure we talked about the ferry, and we wanted to make sure we talked to someone who survived. We wanted to make sure that we talked to people who lost someone on 9/11, and we talked to the mayor of Middletown, because Middletown was the community that lost the most people outside of Manhattan itself. Yeah, that's, and then the things that they talked about, and the things that they told me during the interview that I had no idea about, certainly ended up in the film and changed the plan, for sure.
Wow. And for you, not only being DP and like sitting in the room with these people telling these tragic stories and kind of reliving a really monumental moment in history, and then sitting in the editing chair and going back to these interviews and editing it, what was that process like for you?
The editing of the interviews, my personal process is I like to get transcripts made of the whole interviews, and then I'll sort of lay out the whole film on paper, just using the transcripts and just sort of cutting and pasting and whittling down, 100 pages of transcripts into 8 pages of a 45-minute long, documentary.
Wow.
And that way I can show other, people involved in the film, like, this is what we're going to talk about. This is the story, just on paper. We made a paper edit. And then if we change things, it's so much easier to change a Word document than a documentary. So that's the kind of a way I've been doing in the last few films I've worked on, and I've really sort of been enjoying the shortcut there. But as far as, there was like a lot of, I mentioned the footage from the Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office, which was actually really powerful and like kind of emotional. And there was, footage we obtained of the towers coming down, shot in Brooklyn by New Jersey native, was also, just personally just very, difficult to watch. And, it was definitely sort of hard. The hardest thing I've ever created, I guess, in that way. And there was also, I mentioned that the commuters were coming off of the boat in this video footage. And it happened that my parents were in New York City on 9/11 for at Sloan Kettering for my mom's annual cancer screening, which she's
Wow.
been in remission for a very long time, thank God. But they only go to the city once a year, if
Oh
that.
my
And they were
God.
there on 9/11. And I was watching hours and hours and hours of this footage from this camera on a tripod. And sure enough, I saw my parents coming off of the boat. So,
Oh
which,
my gosh.
yeah, very sort of
Wow.
intense to see that. And, to me, I was, young on 9/11. The fact that my parents had been in the city on that day was always just sort of a little anecdote to me, but actually seeing this footage of them, coming off, holding hands, looking sort of scared, just like everyone else who's coming off the boat, and seeing that, they kind of look just like small inside of this huge tapestry of people that made up everyone affected on that day. So that was, made the film very sort of personal. And sure enough, that shot is in there for sure. You can bet too.
Oh my gosh. I wouldn't imagine what that felt like being you. Seeing that, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So you are from Asbury Park, so it's kind of crazy and like full circle that this will be screening in Asbury Park at the Garden State Film Festival.
Yeah.
Did you know the Garden State Film Festival well, and how does it feel having Monmouth County in 9/11 and its aftermath screen at the festival this year?
Yeah, I mean, I should add just that I was technically from Wanamassa, the little town right next door to Asbury Park. I cannot ignore Wanamassa, but I did live most of my adult life in Asbury. So, and I did it, early on in the days of the Garden State Film Festival, I had a short documentary in there, years ago, and we had another music video in there years ago. So I've submitted things and sort of, been eagerly trying to be a big part of it. But this is the first time I have a longer form. My documentaries in the short was just under for the long form time limit, but it's the first time I've had something long, close to a feature length in there. So it's, a big moment for me. I'm definitely excited to be in it.
That's amazing, and congratulations on like just stepping up each time you return to the festival. It seems like, and so many different
Yeah.
projects coming back here. So that's really cool. It's awesome to talk to you, and you know the festival well. So, congratulations on coming back. I think that this documentary is beautiful. I'm so excited for people to see it because yes, it is very heavy and traumatizing, but it's good to watch, and I'm happy that you guys are sending the message that this happened, but life goes on after it, yeah, I just think it's beautiful. What are you hoping? My last question for you: what are you hoping audience members get out of watching this documentary?
Um, well, I like to hear the stories that people have told me who watched the film. And when people around here watch it, obviously Monmouth County, people have their own stories that are not, that obviously weren't in the film. So it's interesting for after people watch the film, they tell me something that adds to sort of my perspective, and just hearing everyone sort of how they were sort of personally affected. And in fact, the Monmouth County Historical Association has a audio archive where they encourage anyone who has a story from Monmouth County to sort of come and just tell their story, to be part of the archives of the Monmouth County Historical Association. They're building a library of 9/11 stories, basically to preserve for history. So if so, people should definitely reach out to the Monmouth County Historical Association if they have some even small, story or anecdote that they want to share. And I guess that's what I don't think. I mean, it's great that people watch the film, but when I think about people watching the film, I sort of like to think about kids 100 years from now watching it. And so these things, and the people who became heroes, on 9/11 and the people who had tremendous loss. So those things aren't, forgotten in the future.
Mhm.
So legacy, I hope, is what I hope the
Wow.
film manages to hold on to.
Absolutely, and such a timeless documentary that you're right. 100 years from now, people can watch no matter where they're from, but especially in Monmouth County, like knowing, wow, that I'm not in New York, but people really experienced it and still are living through that. So congratulations to you, to the Monmouth County Clerk's Office. Thank you for making this and having the archive of people's stories. I'm glad that you mentioned that because that's amazing people to know, and I hope that they feel obligated and inspired to share their story from watching this
Yeah, me
documentary and
too.
hopefully this interview.
Thank you so much. I
Oh,
appreciate it.
thank you, Adam. Well, for everybody watching, you can watch Monmouth County 9/11 and its aftermath, obviously virtually with our all virtual pass at Garden State Film Festival, but also it will be screening in person at the Berkeley Hotel in the Continental Room, Saturday, March 26th, in the film block 11:45 a.m. to 2 p.m. So I hope everyone can make it and experience this beautiful documentary and hopefully be inspired to tell their story and share just share some common feelings about this. So thank you again. Congratulations.
Thank you.